Biohackers and longevity enthusiasts and amazing audience. It's time for our last session of today, and we're going to wander into the fields of quantum physics. Now, quantum physics is really about revealing that everything is energy. And when we talk about energy, we can also talk about how our thoughts affects our emotions and how our emotions also affects our actions. So how does this correlate to longevity? Well, we're now going to talk with an expert in the area, and health optimization expert and qualified electrical engineer, and also a Carnegie Mellon certified enterprise architect, with 28 years experience in IT and business development. And as an engineer per se, he has really been drawn to explore the world of quantum physics and really understand how does everything relate, matter, energy, and so forth. And he's going to be interviewed by our own Tina Hertz, who we've seen before on stage. So please give a warm welcome to Tina Hertz and Henning R. Jensen.
Thank you. Thank you. So Henning, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for coming here.
So I think I've always been very inspired by the idea of energy and how things are related and how is it actually that something we think actually can metabolize into something physical in our body, for example. I mean, rationally it is like, it doesn't make sense, and then you realize it does. And I think this is where quantum physics comes into place, right?
Yeah.
Like actually.
It's just because the way the quantum physics has shown us that the build how the universe is built. So you have these layers of energy, and that's why it's called quantum physics, because it's in quanta. So you have a layer of energy right next to each other, right? It's really close to each other, and in these layers of energy, particles can actually arise, right? So all particles that exist, they exist in these layers. So when you think about it, if you make a vibration in such a layer, it's like a spider web. You will have a vibration that's felt throughout the network, so to speak. Yeah.
But how can we correlate this into health and longevity? But now, I mean, so how do we correlate this into our lives?
I think the most important thing is to be aware that when we have a thought, and also when we have a feeling, we're actually sending out electromagnetic waves. So our thought and feelings are actually influencing the chemistry in our body. Yeah. Now, and our organs have to live in that, right? So the signaling you're providing through the chemicals in your body is actually dependent on how you see the world. So your interpretation of the world will make your brain tell the body what to anticipate, and then therefore what kind of chemicals do you want to release. So is it serotonin or dopamine, where you're actually feeling loved and you are relaxed and so forth, or oxytocin, where you are feeling you're getting a hug from somebody you love. So those that's good chemicals, right? But then the other interesting thing is that when you feel stressed, you release cortisol into your body. So this closes for the blood to go into this area. So you get your blood primarily in your arms and your legs. So you're ready for fight or flight. But the thing is, if we live like that for a long time, then we don't reproduce in the amount that the cells need to be reproduced, because they die all the time. You've got cells all the time dying, and new cells has to come along. And so if we don't provide the best environment for the cells, then we have a tough time recover from the things we do. Does that make sense?
It does. So basically what you're saying is that how we think and how we perceive the world can actually affect our physical health.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And also, you got to think of it, because if everything is made of these, there's a positive nucleus, right? And there's a negative electron that's going around it, right? So when you send out a signal, electromagnetic signal, you will of course influence, because these are charged. This is negative and this is positive. So you will make an impact. As I said during my lecture over there that a magnet, right? It has a field around it, just like Mother Earth has. So when you put that towards some iron filings, then even though they are all in a big mess, then they will end up in a very fine, like they will lay out in a, what do you call it, like a
Fine order.
yeah, fine order, yeah. So we know that electromagnetic fields actually shape the physical world. We call these iron filings physical, right?
Yeah.
But they are nothing but energy. But they feel like this table seems like solid matter, but that doesn't exist, That only exists.
It's all energy.
Yeah, it's all energy. Yeah.
But I think, and this is amazing because having that understanding gives you a completely new tool to actually look into what can you do for your own health.
Yeah.
How can you feel better? How can you be sure you send good energy to your cells and not bad energy? But I think still for many it's still a little bit far-fetched because this is not what we are
No, we're not
taught
taught that, no.
in our society, in our upbringing.
Yeah.
I think like how do you start working with this from this perspective?
Yeah. Because it's just you don't do it like overnight and now you only have positive thoughts, and that's not what I think we should do.
No.
Because we have all kinds of thoughts coming, but the ones that we grab onto and hold onto, they're going to affect us if we don't let them go. So at some point you gotta decide, I'm gonna keep this kind of thought and feeling and hold on to that. If that's one that I really like to have, right? I want to feel loved by my children, so I spend time with them. That's the feeling that I nourish, but I don't nourish fighting with my neighbor. So there's some things you gotta let go of, and some things you just gotta say, this is what I want in my life, so I will nurture that.
So basically bringing more awareness and attention to what gives you the positive thoughts and feelings, also in your relations, also in your environment.
What do you spend your time on?
Yeah, where do you spend your time? But I think these years there's so much talk also about, and a lot of science coming out on the power of gratitude, which I taps into this fully, or like journaling, which are amazing journals here in this weekend. But really, like, okay, so you actually can practice the idea of holding on to the positive thoughts and maybe enhancing or putting more energy into the positive thoughts than the negative ones.
Yeah, I think it's important that we kind of reflect on what is it actually that makes us angry or makes us sad, because then we can actually change that, and simply by changing our perception. So something that had made us angry in the past, it can actually make us happy in the future if we change the perception. So sometimes you get an information and you look at the thing that irritates you differently, and just by changing that perception, you change the way your chemistry and your electrical field is reacting.
I always have this saying that we live in a world, and even in our close relations, we cannot control what comes at us.
Oh.
But what we can control is how we react to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And kind of taking back that responsibility, but also the power, because it's super empowering to know, yes, of course, you can meet, and sorry my language, an idiot in traffic that will yell at you or whatever, but you can choose if you take it in or how you respond to it.
That's right. So we can actually decide, how am I going to react in this situation?
And it sounds so easy now that we sit up here and we talk
It's
about it. And like, you can just let it go and be positive. But
no, it's not. It's actually hard work until you get the hang of it, so to speak. So when you drift into these negative thoughts and, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing this, then you need to take a turn and cultivate some other thoughts, right?
Yeah, and I think finding those tools, because I think that is the hard part, is actually like, okay, now I'm conscious, I have a negative feeling or a negative thought, but that's not necessarily the same as being able to change it. But then again, finding out what tools do we have in our toolbox to change these negative feelings or thoughts and or remove ourselves from them.
That's right. Another thing I think is important to understand is that the quantum physics shows us that everything is energy, right? So when I go for a drive, I see there's a cow and there's a sign and there's a tree, And of course there is a tree because I see it, but it's not standing there like a picture, because I create the picture in my mind. So the energy that I receive, my eyes, will take in the energy, and the brain will actually work on that, and then it'll present a picture for you. So my world is actually, it's my view of the world. Does that make sense? So I don't think an objective world exists, because there need to be consciousness to translate this energy into something that we can call reality. And my reality is different from everybody else, because the way the brain works is it takes our knowledge and our beliefs, and then it works on that and then makes you a picture. So my knowledge and beliefs are different from yours, so we won't get the same picture, even though we are looking at the same situation.
Yeah, and I think we all experience this many times in life. Like, you've been in a situation and you have your explanation of what happened, and you have mine, and then you have yours, and it's three different stories, right? So I think it's very true, but it's still an interesting perspective when you start tuning into how does it really affect your health and your well-being on a daily basis. Understanding that we have a power, both positively and negatively, to impact our health with our thoughts. But does it mean then, I think there's also people that then get a feeling, okay, if then I'm feeling a negative thought, and am I creating sickness within? Is it something I should stress about?
That's not the way. It's not about guilt. It's just about that we have more power than we actually are aware of. We're not told how much power we got. It's such a powerful tool we got here, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about, I'm guilty because I have this situation in my life now. I had a sick wife for 2 years. And was that my fault? No, it's not my fault, but I was in a situation I had to take care of. So, I had to do that. And then I had to find out, how do I best do this job, and then, go on, right? So it's not about guilt. We shouldn't feel guilty or anything. It's just that we actually know we have much more power than we have been thought to believe, right? Told to believe.
What is your I think, again, there's also TV series, documentaries. Many have probably experienced it in somebody they know or heard of, like people healing themselves from severe illness, or what's your take on that? I mean, can we heal ourselves with positive thinking to some extent? I know it's
It's the thinking and the feeling, and also the subconscious. We need to know what the subconscious is doing. So I need to be aware of what's running, because I see myself as a computer. So I'm born into this life. I'm actually just a computer with no programs on it. So when I buy a computer, I can't hardly use it. There's no messenger. There's no Outlook for sending mails or anything. So it's just a raw computer, you can say. But when I start putting on programs, like being able to bike, being able to eat without thinking about it, all these programs that we put on this computer that we are, right, that makes us actually being able to use life, so to speak. So I think we need to be aware of what kind of programs was actually put in when we were between 0 and 7, because during that period we're not able to say, Dad, is that correct that I'm so stupid? Why are you telling me all the time that I'm stupid because I spilled this milk or whatever? So what we tell our children, especially from 0 to 7 years old, actually from 3 months before you're born till 7 years, they take that in. And I think it's a great design, because if you're going to survive in this world, you need to take in information real quick, and kids do that. But the thing is, they don't have a filter to say, okay, am I really stupid because now I've spilled, I've tossed over the milk for three times in a row or something like that. So if I, as a dad, keep telling my son that he's stupid, you're never gonna learn how to read. Then you don't give him a chance, because he's gonna have a program running. It's difficult for me to read.
Yeah.
So all these programs that we don't want, we have a lot of good programs, being kind to each other and loving each other and all that. That's fine. But the ones that we don't want to have running in the background, we need to change that. And that's through repetition, because the way we program our subconscious when we are above 7 years old, when you're 7 years old, you only are in delta theta waves, right? So you take in information real quick, like in hypnosis. But when you go above 7 years of age, you need to do repetition. So the way I learned to drive was really focusing for a long time, and suddenly I could drive, and then I could start doing other things at the same time. Also biking, I needed to focus, and then I could do it. So my subconscious took over and was actually riding the bike for me.
Yeah.
So that we can actually be aware of these programs, because if I'm working, my son walks in, and I yell at him because he starts talking to me because I'm working. Then I think, that was not really what I wanted to do. So next time he gets in, I tell him, no, just a second, I'll be out with you. So it's a matter of actually finding out what kind of programs do I have running. And the ones that are great, I can just keep running. And the ones that I want to change, I should definitely look into it.
Yeah, so what you're saying, it's not just the thought we have here and now, it's basically what's programmed deep inside of us, our subconsciousness, and this is what we are not necessarily conscious about or aware of.
Yeah.
And that is a big factor in
That's a big
this
factor,
part as well.
So you can either choose to go into hypnosis, because then you're in the same state as you were born, and you can take in the information. Or when you go to bed, you go from higher waves down to delta and theta, and then you actually are in that same state as hypnosis as you were as a kid. So when you had these affirmations or whatever you want to use, and you can fall asleep listening to that, then you change your subconscious behavior.
And how much, how often should you do this? I mean, what you're saying now with this type of hypnosis, I mean, what does it require to change our programming?
Yeah, the funny thing is we can't say it's 21 days for everybody, right? But we can say that since the subconscious is listening and learning through repetition, you need to do it over a period of time. So if we haven't learned to love ourselves, we could repeat for ourselves maybe 20 days, maybe 28 days or whatever, as long as we just need to feel the change. So if you do it 20 days or 25 days, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's just finding out how long do I need to do it in order for my subconsciousness to take it in and then act upon that. Because your subconscious is not going to say, this is stupid, why should I do that? It's going to act how it's programmed. So I think being aware of how we program ourselves, and you think about it. When you have a thought every day, you think, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. You're actually wiring these, you're firing these neurons, right? So you have a freeway where it's easy to keep thinking that same thought, and that's going to take in because your subconscious is listening. So that's why we need to have really be careful. How do I speak to myself? How do I actually talk to myself?
Yeah, and I think this is also one of the challenges in our society that I think a lot of us. Why is it actually? Why are we as human beings usually much better at being hard at ourselves than than loving ourselves? That's a big question, but it is interesting because I think exactly as you say, it's so easy to blame, guilt, run this game with yourself that thinks this was not good enough, you're not good enough, so forth. But you believe this can be changed with hypnosis and other tools?
Yeah, and other tools. You can do it yourself through repetition. But I think a thing like low self-esteem, so if that's what you learn from your mom and dad, then you are ending up in the same way. So you end up acting in the same way.
Yeah.
Of course, also, all the love and all the other stuff that we get that is good things, those we can just keep, and that's great. But some of the things we want to change. Yeah. So I have a good friend, and he looks just like his father. But if I tell him, he's gonna get angry at me, because when he's conscious, he's not acting as his dad. But when he's unconscious, when he's just doing whatever his subconscious is taking over, he's acting just like his dad. But you can't tell him, because then he would, no, I'm not like my dad.
And this is also interesting. So there's this discrepancy between, again, our conscious perception of things, what we believe is how we perceive things, and then how our subconsciousness is actually programmed, right? So it's also understanding that gap, but I think we're very good at just being in our mind and rational and think that is the truth.
I think because we learn that the logic, we got to go the way that our brain tells us, right? So we got to be logic. But to me, it's actually more about feeling. What is the feeling? It's a gut feeling, because we know that the stomach, heart, and the subconscious part of the brain is connected. So there is a communication between those. So if I want to make a good decision, it's got to feel right. Because I know my brain cannot calculate all the information that I've been processing in my subconscious.
So this is intuition you're talking about.
That's intuition, yeah.
And this is why I think many of us has been in situations where we come back and think, damn, I should have listened to my gut feeling. Why was it trying to solve it with my mind?
But to me, it's explainable why it is like that, because when you think about it, all the cells are communicating, right? So they need an antenna to talk to each other, because the cells need to coordinate to have such a functioning body, right? So they talk to each other, and they have the antenna, and they take in information, and they also send out information. But that means that you can actually, the way the subconscious then works, you can take in information from your environment. I mean, that's an intelligent design. If you need to survive in the environment you're living, you need to take in information. So these antennas will actually kind of take in information from your area, right? From the environment you're living in, and then it will process it. So when you have a problem you're trying to solve and you can't find a solution, sometimes you wake up in the morning, you got the solution. How did that came up? So it just came to you, right? But from my understanding, you actually have been working, your subconscious has been dealing with that problem. Now, when you're not in your, when you're, what do you call it, when you relax and you're meditating or you're just waking up, you're actually silent. So the information could pass from your subconscious to your consciousness. You can be aware of what has the subconscious been working on to solve your problem, because it does want to work your way.
And this is why meditation or other mindfulness tools are so powerful if you want to create that connection. But it's interesting, because what I also hear you say is also, one thing is creating that flow, and actually, but it's also that there's communication on so many levels. The cells are communicating, energy flows not just up here but throughout.
That's right.
Everything. And I think that's it gives it makes it more easy to kind of tap into and say, okay, well, my gut feeling is actually something that really is intelligent information that my system took in. It's just not up here in our rational mind.
And I don't know why we don't learn that in school, because the most important thing for me to teach my two children was to, if they ask me for help, I say, I can't answer your question, but I can tell you that it should feel right for you. So I don't know what the right question is for you, because you got your own system running, and it will tell you if you are on the right track or not. You can feel that. So that's the most important thing that I wanted to give my two children. So to take your own decision, because we can't, as an adult, how should I make the right decision? I can navigate, I can help and so forth, but the true decision for them to take is within. And now they are 21, 23, and we talk about it, and I said that it is still the most important thing, that you do your decision.
But this is a little bit opposite of what we are taught in school. In school, we are taught, like, I'm the teacher, I'll tell you what's right and wrong, and I'll tell you what's the right decision. I mean, I'm putting it a little bit black and white, but it's...
But school is actually, it's learning you a lot of good stuff, and you can read and all of that, but it's actually telling you what you should do. I mean, if we want creativity, we want a lot more creativity in the school, so people can evolve, because you want to evolve your brain in a creative way, and not just by learning a lot of stuff, I mean, it's just information that you can pull out later in life and use, but you want to evolve your brain in being creative. That's how you solve creative problems, right?
But again, also, why isn't we are not taught to let our to understand energy, to let our gut feeling, our intuition become more part of our navigation? And I know, of course, some are better at it than others, but it's just still fundamental. The ones that does it, I usually have really spent time on kind of, enhancing that part, because I think we're just schooled like in such a different way. And the more, I think the more, at least for me personally, I learn about, understand how these things are connected, it seems so old school how our system works, and why we are not taught some of this at a much earlier age, instead of sitting here and have to make a whole conference to bring attention to it or write books. But
I think the rational mind is great when you need to learn new stuff, right? You need to use your rational mind. I need to use it to learn to bike and so forth, so I can learn a lot of things using my rational mind. But I don't think it's the best for taking decisions. I really believe it's your heart and your stomach and that whole connection to your subconscious part of the brain. It knows a lot better, because it has been shown, that you take in a million times faster information. And when you think about it, if your subconscious can do that, so it can scan the area, it can take in a lot more data. As an engineer, you want to have the best data set to make a decision. And I think that's in your subconscious. So when we work with that, if we think that it has 95% of the time, because we only, what do you call it, aware 5% of the time, right? So it has more time, it has more computer power, then the subconscious must deliver the best result.
Yes, agreed.
So,
Time is running out, but I think what is just before we stop, like, how do you really nourish this ability to? What's your best recommendation or tool?
Yeah, I think the best thing that happened to me working with all of that is that I feel I now live in synchronicity. I don't have to fight this. Life is no longer a struggle, as Darwin said. Because when you navigate in the area you are, in the environment you're living in, you navigate through the impulses you get. That's intuition. That's taking in information on all your antennas on these cells. Then you're actually living a life that's not a fight. So it has become more of a joyride, you can say. And we all can do that. We just need to sometimes leave our rational mind and have a gut feeling of what should I do here. So I think since everything is energy, it's so connected. One thing I'd just like to just give it an example, has nothing to do with this, but just to understand that everything is energy. So if I take a piece of wood and I would burn it, right? So it will disappear to me. There's no wood. So it's charcoal and it's heat and it's flames and it's smoke. But none of the particles that made up this wood is gone. You cannot burn particles away. Do you know what I mean? So they don't disappear. They transform into charcoal and to heat and to smoke. So you don't burn up things in that way, so to speak. You make a transformation. Everything is a transformation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it resonates, at least for me. Hopefully for you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank
you
you
for listening in.